Hey, what's up?
Hey, Alex, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Hanging in there, hanging in there. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thanks for hopping on.
Of course, anytime.
Welcome to number 43 of the number 43 episode of the Dugout Report. I'm here with Jake McKeever, and I'm excited to have him on to recap about the College World Series and what's going on with everything else. So, welcome and happy to have you on.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, Omaha is officially here. Flying out Wednesday, so super, super excited. A little bit sad that college baseball is kind of winding down, but this is what we all kind of trained for, if you will.
hmm So, what were your thoughts on the region you covered out in Los Angeles?
Well, it was an exciting regional. It was UCLA, St. Mary's, Cal Poly, and Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, I think, was a really kind of interesting one because they lost just kind of two games, and when they got eliminated, it was a heartbreaker as Renfro got chased really early. They obviously had the walk off home run from UCLA. UCLA just really kind of gets bit by the St. Mary's bug. They were talking kind of all week leading up to it that St. Mary's wasn't your average four. They were a West Coast four, and that they were going to look to do damage in UCLA, and that's exactly what they did. Savage kind of gave them a ton of credit, too. They really outplayed UCLA both games. It really wasn't like it was a fluke thing or anything like that. And then ultimately, Poly kind of just had St. Mary's number. They really took care of business with them. Griffin Ness, I think, pitched phenomenal on Friday. Poly had a really, really strong bullpen, which was kind of interesting because when they went over to West Virginia, almost the complete opposite happened. But that was kind of good. And then I went and saw the final game of USC versus Texas A&M, where USC really just kind of dominated Texas A&M. They had a fantastic pitching approach. The hitting was really, really pesky. They ran up the pitch count and then ultimately kind of laid that haymaker there in the seventh inning with that 3-run home run. Again, another team that went and lost in the Super Regionals, so maybe not the most lucky person when it comes to seeing teams in regionals.
hmm what was your favorite game that you covered out in the LA region?
Um, I would say that UCLA Virginia Tech game, like it had like a ton of buzz and a ton of hype with Renfro was the number one team in the country, kind of playing with their season on the line. And it was a really fantastic game. Virginia Tech, played really well in kind of the middle of the late innings, and then UCLA just kind of turned it on. They hit back-to-back home runs in the top of the ninth, single, and then they go first to third on another single before Phoenix Call hits them home with a 5-man infield. I mean, it was a fantastic game. Can't really complain. It felt like everybody kind of inhaled, exhaled. Like I remember leaving the hotel like the next morning when they had St. Mary's, and I was like, UCLA is going to absolutely roll St. Mary's. Feels like they kind of got their mojo, their groove back, and St. Mary's really did kind of put UCLA in their place with that walk off.
hmm Uh, any MLB draft prospects stick out to you in the LA regional?
Phenomenal, phenomenal plays. Did I freeze there?
Yeah, you did.
Sorry about that. But
Oh,
I
good.
would say the headliners, Rock Chalowski, who's probably going to be the number one overall pick. Well, I did go hitless in the weekend. He had some phenomenal, phenomenal plays in the field. He made just some ridiculous ones where he showed off the arm strength. Roman Martin's, I think, another one too that really kind of stands out to me. The third baseman, he was a shortstop coming in. He had a phenomenal weekend. Obviously, he had that big hit, against St. Mary's, and he had a few against Virginia Tech. And then Lavu at first base, I think, is another one that really kind of stood out to me. And then Gasparino in center. Peyton Brennan, he took in and out. But, yeah, I mean, UCLA was an absolutely loaded team. It really is kind of a shame that they went out the way that they did. I felt like they peaked a little bit too early. They were pretty banged up. But, I mean, that's probably one of those teams that we'll be talking about of, like, what if everything would have landed a certain way.
hmm what were your thoughts on how everything uh, came along in the other regional games?
Um, it's weird because I felt like some teams got really good draws, and then some teams ended up having tough draws. And the teams I thought had the toughest draw, Ole Miss, ended up kind of rolling through their side of the bracket. They beat
hmm
Nebraska, Arizona State twice, and then Auburn twice. I mean, those are 3 teams that I got to see all year, and I was very, very impressed when I saw Arizona State. I know that the RPI really wasn't the best, the record really wasn't the best, but they felt like they were really one of the best teams that I saw all season. Obviously, the whole thing with Landon Harrison kind of changed the dynamic of that regional, and then Auburn going out the way that they did. They fought so hard in those 2 games against Milwaukee, and it felt like that they kind of righted the ship, and then Ole Miss kind of really put them in their place. Mississippi State was kind of interesting too. I'm gonna be honest; that's exactly how I saw that one playing out. There were 2 teams that absolutely loved to bang the ball around the yard. It really was kind of holding your breath. It really was, a coming out party for Jacob Parker, which, at least for people who have followed college baseball all year, like Jacob Parker is one of the best freshmen in the country. Like, I know Anthony Pack ended up winning the SEC Freshman of the Year from the coaches' vote, but I thought Ethan Bingaman and Jacob Parker had just as big of an argument over Anthony Pack, and Jacob Parker with the moxie, hitting 2 home runs. It's really, really interesting because his brother JoJo obviously plays with the Blue Jays, was a top pick last year. They both went out to Arizona at the draft combine and had varying results. Obviously, Jacob wanted to come back and go to school to raise his draft stock, while JoJo had a phenomenal kind of Arizona and was kind of able to catapult that into the draft. But they get 2 more years of Jacob Parker at Mississippi State. He's not playing at Mississippi State for free, so I don't think he's going to go anywhere. But that one really kind of stood out to me. I think that there's a few guys that are really kind of set to break out here, especially with the Omaha field. But at least for the guys that were leaving behind in super regionals, Jacob Parker was, a phenomenal player.
Mm-hmm. What goes on like a day in life with you covering games wall to wall, like the LA regional that you were at?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you're watching baseball all day. It was a little bit weird because I'm from Central Time Zone in Houston, so I wasn't kind of used to the West Coast time, so I was having to get up super, super early to try and watch the games. I prefer to get to the ballpark super, super early, so I got there about 2.5 hours before just so I can get a nice parking spot, get a good spot. I like to watch in and out and then catch up on some of the games, really kind of do some assessments from some of the advanced stats, seeing kind of what's going on. I track pitch counts from the day before of guys that we can kind of see pitch. And then from there, at a regional, it's 2 games. You get a little bit of a break in between, but you're also doing media post-game and cutting up videos. So it's a long, long day. And I ended up leaving UCLA, I think, at about 11 o'clock at night on Friday night. So it's definitely kind of a long day, if you will. But, it's the postseason, so you only get 2-3 weeks of it. So you got to get it while you can.
Mm-hmm. What kinds of things do you do during the off season?
First off, the Cape Cod League, I think, kind of infatuates us all. We get 2 months of those. I don't cover it as close as college baseball. I actually kind of watch it more of as a fan. And then from there, we get about 6 weeks off. I usually try and, take a reset from sports and avoid everything. And then we start planning for the fall. We start doing the transfer stuff at about September. October, we go and see some fall stuff. And then from there, we get a month off in December and January right back rolling. So it's kind of like the perfect amount of time where I get, August to kind of get away from sports and then come back, be ready to go.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the College World Series matchups?
First off, I think it's a fantastic, fantastic field. I think it's one of the best ones that we've seen in the last 6-7 years. 5 SEC teams, and it's none of like the quote unquote blue blood SEC teams. Like we're doing it without LSU, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt and LSU broke some long streaks, so it's kind of interesting. Ole Miss is a 500 SEC team. Oklahoma is the 11th team. Alabama, I think a lot of people had them preseason double digits. Georgia was preseason number 9, and Texas is obviously Texas. But I think it's one of the deepest fields that we've ever seen because West Virginia and North Carolina are the 2 of the 3 non-SEC teams, and they have 2 of the deepest staffs in the country. And West Virginia is kind of playing with house money in a good way. So I'm really kind of excited to see what they do. Troy obviously beat Florida twice, and Florida was on. There were a lot of SEC teams that really couldn't probably do what they did. Little Rock was kind of a pesky team, but Troy kind of took care of them. Ole Miss is probably playing their best baseball in the last 5 years. They have 3 legitimate starters with the old man Hunter Elliott, going out there for his 5th year. Taylor Rabe and Cade Townsend are probably going to be 2 guys in the top 50 picks. And then On the other side of the bracket, Georgia, Texas. I mean, these are, two of the best teams in the SEC this season. We didn't get to see a regular season series, so it's kind of fitting that we get to see it now. And then Alabama and Oklahoma. I mean, Alabama and Oklahoma both have really, really great staffs. Oklahoma's kind of figuring stuff out right now at the perfect time. That lineup has a ton of depth, ton of length, which is weird because they really weren't like that in SEC play. Like, they were like that at the beginning of the year in Arlington, and then SEC play kind of rolled around, and they were kind of on the struggle bus. That bullpen was really, really taxed. The starters weren't giving them any length. And, the last 2 weeks, the complete opposite's been the case. They're banging the ball around the yard. They're chasing starters. Their starters are getting length. The scored Rangers sped up from the Sunday guy into the Friday role. Xander Merciless, whose brother was the Friday guy for a good chunk of the season, he's now the Saturday guy. And then for Alabama, I mean, this is a team where coming into, SEC play, they were one of the worst teams statistically. Like, they really didn't do anything phenomenally well. Like, they were a very average hitting team by SEC standards. I think they were 14th. The earned run average was, very similar. But in the back half of SEC play, they've really, really turned it on. Tyler Fay, obviously threw the no-hitter against Florida. He's been phenomenal. Zane Adams, who was their Friday guy last year, who kind of, stepped into a new role. He's been phenomenal. And then, Miles Upchurch behind him as a freshman has really kind of stepped up and been that Sunday guy, which I think in the next 2 years, he's going to be one of those Friday night guys in the SEC. They've been getting a ton of length from Hines. Fowler and Neal are having, career years, and LeBron's really starting to figure it out. I know that the bat wasn't there for a good chunk of it, but his fielding was always there. And, the bat you kind of eventually knew was going to come around. So I think it's a phenomenal College World Series. Like, I could realistically, I know last year Murray State was a great story, but you're kind of like, yeah, they're probably going to go 2-Q. The year before that, I think, was a really loaded field too as well. But I mean, you can talk yourself into 5 or 6 different things where it's like, yeah, I could see the bracket playing out this way, and Troy's sitting there in the 1-0 game, and anything can happen. I think it's really kind of one of those weekends where it's not going to be over till it's over, especially when you have Georgia on that side of the bracket. Even if they lose that game 1 to Texas, teams are going to be counting those outs, hoping that those Georgia Bulldogs kind of go by the wayside.
What do you do from now to the game when the games begin?
So I fly out to Omaha tomorrow. So I got to pack tonight. Got to do a little bit of final prep. I'm doing some mapping stuff. And then Thursday we'll have media day at Omaha. So we'll have all 8 teams on the field. We get to watch the practices. We get to talk to the guys, talk to the coaches. And then Friday we're rocking and rolling. I think we're getting to the stadium at 8 a.m. So we usually do a steak dinner on Thursday night after media, just because that's kind of what Omaha's famous for. There's been some rumors of like a softball game with some of the media members, but it'll be a lot of fun. I mean, Omaha's the best this time of year.
Any other things that you have on your mind that you want to talk about?
I think it's really interesting right now because I think the college game's at a really great spot, just because with the schedule, the tournament, I mean, everything feels like it's absolutely perfect right now. We fixed the thing with the draft. I thought that was a little bit weird, so the draft guys can kind of enjoy their moment. And I think if you're a draft guy, there's a lot to really like in this class in Omaha. There's a lot of kind of underrated guys. There's a few guys that we're going to get a little preview on next year in terms of draft stock, but I think it's a phenomenal time to be a college baseball fan. It feels like, every year we grow, and this year definitely feels like the peak.
What are your thoughts on the off-season transfer portal and how everything is shaping up to be?
Well, first things first, I know that a lot of the coaches kind of complain about the schedule, but I think it kind of serves as almost like a balancing act, because you have teams like LSU that have been, living in the portal since June 1st versus a team like Georgia, Texas, where they're doing scouting reports for themselves and trying to balance portal guys and doing this and doing this. So I think it kind of gives you like a ton of balance where Jay Johnson can go, balls to the wall, 16, 17 hours a day trying to get transfer portal stuff, where guys like Jim Schlossnagle have to do game prep, have to play with the guys and stuff like that. So I think from like a calendar standpoint, I think that that's in a really good spot. 1, 2, I think, we don't want to push it back too far because we want to give these guys a chance to test schools, take visits, not feel rushed, as well as go to summer stuff. I know that there's been rumors of kind of like a December portal window. I'm kind of glad that the coaches kind of nixed that. To be honest, I think the portal's in a really, really good spot because there's still kind of that value of like Troy, for example. Everybody's going to sit here and say, oh, Troy's going to be decimated by the portal. Troy's this, Troy's this. Troy's got 10 JUCO guys. They have 10 guys that were, mid-major kind of bounce ups because they were at smaller schools. They have, I think, 5 guys from, mid-major wash or major kind of wash downs. So a big chunk of their roster is from the transfer portal. So it's not like, and I'll say this too, like Poly, they were a team, they were really old. They had some guys from the transfer portal. So they're still kind of that small school diamond in the rough. Lamar was really kind of transfer portal heavy in the Southland, and they won the Southland. So I think that there's still kind of a ton of value for these little schools to where it's not like, hey, we're just developing kids for 2-3 years and they go on. Like, I don't really think that that's kind of the case with a lot of these kind of smaller mid-majors. Yes, that is the case for some of these schools. But the flip side of that is some of these athletes, like Georgia Southern was like abysmal last year. They won 10 games. They have some phenomenal players, but, if you're not winning, if you're not keeping those guys, like, I'm kind of glad some of these guys are coming into the SEC. It's an exciting time. The SEC's loaded, but the flip side of that is, balancing between that stud freshman that's going to get drafted in 2 years versus, kind of the veteran experienced fifth-year guy that's going to hit 320. I think that there's still kind of a ton of value and still a ton of coaching that goes along with that. Like, Georgia's kind of been the poster child for portal stuff, but I mean, Trey Phelps has been there for a few years. Dan Jackson's been there for a few years. So it's still kind of a big development piece when it comes to the portal is what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Before we end the episode, I just wanted to take the time to get your prediction of the championship round for the College World Series.
I think that this is going to be a really, really tough one. I went with Georgia over UNC in 3 games, but I think Texas could win it too. To be honest, I think all 8 teams could win it. I mean, it's a phenomenal, phenomenal field. I'm sure I'll be really wrong, and one of those 2 teams will go 0-2. But right now, it looks like Georgia over North Carolina.
I appreciate you for coming on and taking some time out of your day to talk baseball with me, and I love what you're doing on Twitter, updating every day about things going on in the college baseball world, and keep it up, and hope to have you back on soon.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, I mean, this was a lot of fun. Just let me know when we can do this again.
Yeah, for sure. Have a good night.